I consider myself a facilitator, and I want to help some discussion come. So I'm just as interested in hearing what you have to say on your perspective as well. Uh, but the general, what I want to do is have some kind of discussion as well as generate a situation where we can start to act in the world in a positive way to help produce positive change in the way the world is going. In response to your question, my perspective, the fact is, what's going on with the world is not working. Like speaking, where are you at in the world again? Okay, all right. So I'm not sure how it is in Bulgaria and Germany exactly, but perhaps I could learn that from you. But in America, for instance, there's enough evidence out now that the government, people in the government, was behind 9/11, which means that there's people in the United States government that murdered American people in order to perpetuate a lie to justify going to attack other people. That's not anything new. There was also an incident called the Gulf of Tonkin, where the supposed justification, one of them for going into the Vietnam War, the Navy said that one of their ships was attacked by Vietnam people. It was a lie. But they said, oh, we was attacked, we need to go ahead out and do something to them. There was also a report that was declassified from the Kennedy era, where President Kennedy was given a um, um, a proposal to create a false flag against Cuba. You ever heard of that? Awesome. So you're up to date. So the people in government right now do not care about us. They don't care about the world. And an important perspective in changing this matter is to recognize that we're not victims, right? With this perspective that I've come from for a while, but as I try to get into actually changing things and doing a lot of research, especially from civilizations, which gets into another topic that we can discuss as well, extraterrestrials. But the only way we're going to change this thing is to accept that we did this to ourselves. You know, I remember uh, when I first got my first job, feeling uncomfortable about income tax. And I thought to click exempt, but I was afraid because I didn't want to not click exempt, and something comes down on me. But now I'm learning that the income tax is not only illegal, but even according to the statutes or rules or whatever you call it inside their own Internal Revenue Service, we our income is not taxable. And this is what we've all basically done, either through to fear, either through to ignorance, or either through to greed. We've given away our own power, and we've decided to let these people handle it. The government ended up getting hijacked by these people who only care about money and about themselves, and now we're in a situation where people are getting killed and slaughtered by the thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions in some cases, uh, off of the backs of our labor. So basically, we're funding the enterprises that are killing us. You know, uh, huh? Hmm. Never. Yeah, I mean, the people who actually fight wars never benefit from wars. The only people who benefit from wars are the people who finance wars and make money from it, or supply the weapons for wars and make money from it. And like you said, I agree. I think a lot of it was population an attempt at population reduction, which is why a lot of people say they're spraying us with chemicals with the chemtrails, and then we have to genetically modify food and aspartame, fluoride in the water, which apparently Hitler did to help subdue the Jews who he slaughtered by the millions. Do they have fluoride in your water in Germany? So it's crazy, man. So my perspective is that if we all unite, and it's really is not even up to us uniting to one extent. Like, I'm starting to learn, and that's where the extraterrestrial thing comes in mind. What is your position on extraterrestrials? I mean, sentient beings who are as intelligent or more intelligent than us, and of course some of them are not as intelligent, but many more of them, according to my research and observation, are as intelligent or more intelligent than us, who live on other planets or other parallel Earths and visit this planet, either from parallel Earths or from other planets in this solar system. Seldom, but they have bases in other planets apparently in the solar system, or from other solar systems in this galaxy, or even from other galaxies that visit here in spacecraft or interdimensional craft. hmm That's right. No, no. According to my research, and this is based upon research into, there's this guy named Daryl Anka who has telepathic contact with an extraterrestrial and relays information. It's his lady named Lisrael who does the same thing. There's also people who have been in secret projects inside of the government who came forward, like Phil Schneider, and others, but that's the name that comes to mind. There's also Stephen Greer, who is a medical doctor, who, and I mean, this is a lot of information. You're gonna have to write it down. Like I said, I'll record it and post it. But there's Stephen Greer, who contacted hundreds, if not thousands now, of government and secret project individuals who came forward with information about what's been going on. He even have a lot of those documented in video. He even has a lot of those who he actually took to Congress and actually explain what they've observed and seen and know to Congress. So that's my background on what I'm about to say. There's some extraterrestrial races who are about at the same level of us, who actually come from parallel Earths, who have made agreements with the government and interact with them, but they ended up getting, falling into the web of getting tricked, so, but that's a minimal group. The majority of the groups that come here are much more advanced than us. Like, for instance, there's the group of extraterrestrials that Bashar calls the Yaryel. If you research, are you aware of the Phoenix, Arizona sighting? You can go to YouTube. It's very, and I say very popular, but it's surprising that it's not like everybody knows about it because it was so an amazing thing of a contact. But what happened is in Phoenix, Arizona, I believe it was in 1997. It was either 1993 or 1997. There was a craft about 2 miles wide, shaped like a boomerang. So it was shaped like this. It was around 2 miles wide that hovered over the entire state of Arizona in the United States of America. So that's basically in the area probably as big as Europe. So imagine something, a solid object that was I don't know how wide a football field is, like what, 300 yards? I don't know how much amount of a mile it is, but I mean, you know what 2 miles is. That's like what, 3 kilometers wide, hovering silently over the state. People recorded it. There's video recordings of it from several people from different angles. It was flying over the state, so it flew directly over people's heads. People saw it. Even the governor of the state at the time saw it with his own eyes. And at the time, while he was still governor, he denied it or avoided the subject. But years later, when he wasn't in politics anymore, he went on camera saying he saw it, and he certainly was an extraterrestrial craft. But this race of being is supposed to be the first race of being that makes open contact, like lands and actually interacts with people as a whole. They have nothing to do with the government. The Bashar people, they call it the Essasani. They have nothing to do with the government. There's this race called the Pleiadians. There's this guy named Billy Meyer who claimed contact with them, and I myself, I have not seen enough evidence myself of his case to say that I myself personally can validate the case personally. Like with the so-called Phoenix Lights event, I've seen enough video and enough testimony and so forth where I know that happened. But that guy was in Germany. He lives in Germany, so I don't speak German, and I live in America, so I wasn't able to investigate as much as I could things that happened here. But the lady who channels the Pleiadians, they verify his contacts is real. They have nothing to do with the government, but they're so advanced that they can travel anywhere. Like they have technology that can switch dimensions, and they can travel anywhere at will. And when I was a kid, I wrote a detailed account of this. Is on my website. I had interactions with a race of gray alien beings, and apparently this whatever kind of race they are, I'm not sure if these are the same ones that's in the craft that I saw, but I went to reach out telepathically because I started to see from these other people that was having telepathic contact, like Bashar, who says he channels the Essasani. He said that he saw their craft. They showed their craft to him, and he's in telepathic contact. So I started doing the telepathic thing and reaching out with my mind. I started to see crafts, right? And the same type of craft I saw on about 4 occasions. I only saw it come out the cloud once, where I actually physically saw the craft. But there were several occasions where I saw the light in the cloud that was just like the light, in other events. Now, the reason why this is important is because these are races who've already been past our level of advancement. These are groups of people, even though they may not look like us, but they're groups of a different type of human being, right, that have been past our level of development. And so they can give us tips and actually demonstrate the fact that it's possible to survive in a society that's different from what we have. For instance, they describe a society that has no government, that has no money. I mean, do you think that's possible to not have money? Have you ever considered that before? How would you describe such a society? And that's progress. That's progress. But that's still not at the level that they exist at, the level that we can have. And there's actually a person on this world called Jacques Fresco who leads something called the Venus Project that speaks at this level. What you're talking about is barter, which is still trade, which is still in a sense no different from money. Like if I have a dollar bill that we say is valuable and you have a fruit, I give you the dollar bill and you give me the fruit. And then you take the dollar bill and you go get whatever you want. But all we're doing is just bartering something. It's just what happened is a small group of people on this planet convinced us to believe that this little piece of paper and this little piece of metal is important, and they control the metal and piece of paper, so then they have power over everything. But that's really no different from me saying my apple is valuable and you saying your pumpkin is valuable, and we trade it, and then now you have some apples and some pumpkins, so you trade a little bit of apples and pumpkins for pears. It's just bartering, but it's still a situation where we're separate. You know, you have your apples and you trade it to me. I have my pumpkins and I trade it to you, but we don't say all of our apples and all of our pumpkins are equally both of ours. That's what, huh? Mm. Without what? In other words, everybody grow their own apple. Okay, let me introduce this idea. All right. How many people do you know personally that grows apples? Well, right now, right now. Okay. Now, do you eat the produce that comes from those people? Well, I'm actually heading to a point more simple than that. But I'm just asking. Normally, do you eat their food? Like, is that your main source of food? Well, I mean, factually, right now, is that your main source of food? Okay. Well, I mean, it's not that complicated. It's very simple. So, you still have access to food, but it's not from somebody who personally grows food. Correct? Hmm. Exactly. The reason why I say that is because right now, without you or me personally growing food, there is already a system in place that produces enough food. So it's not necessary for any more people to grow food now than are already growing food to have enough food for everybody. So to take people who could be producing technology that could eliminate those people from working farms, or who can produce technology that could eliminate the need for gas and coal. And of course, that technology has already been produced. But the point I'm saying is, a broader society would actually be a step back. Reason being, we can actually produce the technology to where nobody has to labor. Right? We can actually produce the tech. Matter of fact, we already have the technology where nobody has to labor. Right? Or very, very few have to labor. Just enough people to maintain the machines. This technology has already been conceptualized by Jacques Fresco, right? And this technology is already used in these extraterrestrial societies. The people in these extraterrestrial societies are not farmers and gatherers trading food. They're advanced societies that travel the galaxy, learning, growing, observing, exploring, right? And they use advanced technology to supply those needs, right? Very similar to Star Trek. You've seen Star Trek, in the sense that they don't have to have farmers on Star Trek. They have technology that make food out of thin air. So rather than backtracking and saying, okay, let's grow food and trade, let's utilize the fullness of our technology from a more advanced psychology to where everyone is free, and we can actually utilize our mind in higher pursuits. You know, food, even though it's necessary for our survival, is actually a very low pursuit. You know, back in the day when people had no technology, they had to spend all that time growing food because they all did it manually. They didn't have these big machines that could, you know, sow and reap fields of corn automatically in hours. They had to all do it by hand, and it was pulling stuff with horses and stuff. So that's why it took so long. So that's why they had to do it. You know, but today we don't have to do that. Nobody has to work. But it will require a change in our thinking until we recognize that we all one people. Where we recognize that the planet is the natural inheritance of everybody. All the produce of the planet is a natural inheritance of everybody. And all we have to do is simply work together to help make sure everybody is taken care of, just like a household. So when food comes into a household, you know, like do you live with people right now? Right? Like about how many people do you live with? 2 people, okay. So when y'all 2 people live together, do you have your side of the house and he has his side of the house, and then you have the toothpaste, and then he has the mouthwash, and you give him a little bit of toothpaste and he gives you a little bit of mouthwash? And like, do y'all barter like that, or do y'all just, you know, the stuff is in the refrigerator, y'all just both put stuff in there and you just go get it? Yeah, yeah. We could think like that across the entire planet. Then there'll be no need for a barter system or a monetary system or any kind of trade. The whole earth will be our refrigerator. The whole planet will be our home. And then we can use the fullness of our technology to where we don't even have to work anymore. And we could devote the fullness of our thinking and our intellect and our efforts to actual true development, spiritual development, exploration of the galaxy, interaction with other societies, extraterrestrial societies, you know. So that's my perspective on it. Well, hmm, hmm. And I'm making sure I'm typing out the question so I can make sure I answer both of them fully. Right? Okay, so the first one, what could convince everybody to change? It actually has two answers. One, you don't have to convince anybody to change. And this comes from both a quantum physics perspective. Matter of fact, 3 perspectives. It comes from a quantum physics perspective, it comes from a metaphysics perspective, and it comes from the extraterrestrial perspective. And this perspective is this: there is not just one universe. There's a multitude of universes, right? Which means there's a multitude of Earths, which means that every single potentiality actually happens. And I've experienced this myself. I'm not sure if you're familiar with ideas like remote viewing and the out-of-body experience, but I utilize these practices to explore alternate universes, and I know that they exist. I've experienced it. So right now, there seems to us to be this one Earth, but there's this Earth. There's also an Earth where they're in absolute tyranny, where the government that's sometime in the past, the government actually won over and they have everybody enslaved and microchipped and everything, right? And there's other Earths where it's a free and open society right now, right? So what happens is the Earth that we experience is determined by our own inner choices, right? So if we make a choice for peace and freedom, no matter what, if we individually ourselves choose liberty and unity and freedom, no matter what anybody else chooses, we will experience that Earth. The way it plays out is you may die on this Earth, right? Like let's say, and by the way, I'm used to calling you Holly Powers. How do I say your first name? Okay. So somebody might say, wow, Choco was out speaking about freedom and peace, and the government came and killed him. And then this world becomes an absolute tyranny. But on an alternate earth, you may be speaking out about freedom and peace, and people listen, and the world becomes a free society. So they could, in that instance, be two earths, one where an earth goes to absolute tyranny, but since you yourself don't choose that, you don't experience that earth, and the way it plays out is you die on that earth. But on the earth that goes to freedom, you choose that, and you experience that in that timeline. Is that understandable? It's a matter of choice. That's right. That's right. And that's only up to you. Only up to you. No one else and nothing else can change that. No one else and nothing else can interfere with that. No other people, no government, which is just a group of people, no extraterrestrials, no anything. Whatever you choose, sincerely, fully, completely, which means that you choose no matter what happens externally. Like if you choose peace and freedom, and the government comes and still beats you over the head with a billy club, and you say, oh, I thought I was choosing peace and freedom, but I'm still getting beat up, it's not working, so I guess this doesn't work, I'm in a world of tyranny, then you experience tyranny. But if you choose what you choose, regardless of what happens externally, regardless of how it looks, that will be your reality. Which again, does not mean, from my perspective, that'll be your reality. Because I don't know your religious beliefs, and to me is not considered a religious belief. And from my perspective, there was a historical person in the world named Yeshua or Jesus or whatever people want to call him that was crucified, who was a very peaceful, loving person, right? So you think, well, he was a very peaceful, loving person, right? But then he was killed, right? But he changed so completely it didn't even matter. His peace was not affected. You know, his inner reality did not change. So the first thing that happens when we choose peace for ourselves is, even if we experience an external negative, we won't experience it from a negative perspective. In other words, a Palladian or in a society, it is impossible for them to be perceived as a victim. Even if you do something that, from our perspective, would be to victimize them. Let's say if a police walks up to a Palladian and hits him over the head with a billy club, that Palladian would take responsibility for that. There's no way you can make a victim out of a Palladian. They would accept that they brought that into their reality, right? So even if they're engaged in tyranny, they will still be free internally, which is why it's been said. There's a guy who I learned from a lot that teaches a course in miracles called Kitten Wapnick. And they say that you could be at peace even in Auschwitz. You know, Auschwitz was a big Germany concentration camp. If you adjust your thinking, no one has the power to adjust or affect your thinking. When we think somebody has affected our internal attitude, what we've done is we have affected our own internal attitude and blamed it on them. And again, the other side is when we do change our internal attitude, no matter what's going on the outside, we have the ability to literally change worlds and experience a world that reflects that reality, you know. And conversely, because of the way the universe is set up, the fact is you can change your inner attitude and still experience a tyrannous world. To experience that tyrannous world, like there's another perspective that speaks about the universe as just a realm of experience. So experiencing a tyrannous world is really no different from experiencing a free world from that perspective. It's just an experience within multiplicity. You know, so you can be a perfectly peaceful person and one aspect of yourself experience a peaceful world, and you could be a perfectly peaceful person and one aspect of you experience a free world. And both of those experiences become a part of your overall spiritual experience. You know, then you reincarnate and go experience another experience. So that's one aspect. That's how you answer your first. That's one answer to your first question. You don't really have to change anybody else, right? The other half of that is you do change everybody else by changing yourself. Reason being, if you truly choose for yourself to be peaceful and free and to believe in self-ownership, right? And you change worlds, it'll look to you like you have changed people. It'll look to you like you have convinced the world. But what will happen is you choose for yourself and change to a free world, and someone else chooses for themselves and change to a free world. So you both change to the same free world and you experience a free world together. But the way it plays out is I choose freedom, like I'm beginning to choose freedom and sovereignty. And in my own choice for freedom and sovereignty, I need to speak out about it. Right? So in my own choice of freedom and sovereignty, I'm speaking out about it. So it seems like you're speaking with me about it. But really, you chose for yourself. I chose for myself. And this is the way it's playing out. So that's how it happens the world over. I choose for myself. And I experience the world, that alternate world that is experiencing it. And everybody else who chooses for themselves will experience that other world. Right? And that's the way it works out. You know, so in one sense, you don't have to change anybody. Because all you have to do is change yourself. In the other sense, if you do change yourself, the effect will be a perception of other people changing, potentially, because they choose for themselves as well. But just the way it plays out, you know, I write and speak and I write books and people read it and they change their mind, and that's how it plays out. Not that I'm trying to change them, but just because in my own integrity, when I change, I can't help but to act from that perspective. You know, Martin Luther King, I don't think he necessarily tried to change the world. I think just in his integrity, he had to speak out. Just like Mahatma Gandhi, he said something to that effect. You know, something to the effect of, you know, a person who sees wrong and don't do anything. I am thinking about Martin Luther King. You know, he said if you see injustice and you don't do anything out of fear, or it actually scars your soul worse than any pain that of punishment that will come to you. That's a very bad paraphrase. But what he's saying basically is, if you stand for freedom and liberty and you don't actually act on that out of fear that the tyrant is going to beat you, that's going to scar your soul worse than any beating the tyrant can give you. So out of his integrity, not because he was trying to change the world, but just out of his integrity, for his belief in freedom, he couldn't help but to speak out. You know, and that's what it has to be. You know, if I try to change the world, that's no different from the tyrant trying to change the world. I may be trying to change the world for good. I'm getting a beat from somewhere. I might be trying to change the world for good, right? But that's no different from me trying to change the world for bad. I'm saying, you know, my view of what's going on is better than your view, so accept my view. That's why I'm expressing what I see happening, and I'm offering it up. And you know, some things you agree with, some things you don't, and that's fine. You know, I'm just saying in general. You know, whoever, some things people agree with, some things they don't. But I'm confident that if I simply perceive and move in the direction of love and peace and uniting, that I will experience that for myself. You know, even if I live in a tyrannous world, I can still experience it internally, but I could also experience it externally by changing worlds. And it might take the form of me speaking from my integrity and people listening to what I have to say and changing. But whatever the case is, I just can't just do nothing when I see something is wrong. So all you got to do is find your integrity, and it'll happen automatically. As far as the government, the second point, you know, there is a government there. We put them in power, and the way it plays out, they are responsible for, you know, looking at what happened in America. You know, and I'm starting to doubt that everything happened the way it happened. But I'm confident enough to say there was slavery in America. I'm confident enough to say that there was a concerted effort to keep a certain people down. So when people got together like the Black Panthers, there was actually a concerted effort, documented, a concerted effort by the government, the FBI, the CIA, and any other acronyms you can find to separate and destroy that movement. They did not want to let those people get any kind of political or cultural power. They infiltrated the groups and caused them to infight amongst each other. They fabricated charges against them and killed their leaders or key people. They made a concerted effort to keep them separated, like you were saying. That did play out. You know, but when you look at it from a Palladian perspective, though, that was only able to happen because we allowed it to happen. From the Palladian perspective, we have to take 100% responsibility, which is really just a siren perspective. In order to be free, we have to take 100% responsibility for our reality, right? And from that perspective, what actually happened is we were afraid of our own power. And as such, we gave someone else the power and told them to handle it, which is what happens in today's world. Some people are afraid of guns in America, right? So what they say is, I don't want to have a gun. Take the gun from me. Take the gun from all the other people, and just let the government and police have guns, and they will be safe, because they're afraid of their own power. Which means they're afraid of other people's power. They're afraid because they're afraid that they can't defend themselves if that person used their power wrongly. So they want to see everybody disempowered so they can feel safe. So this is a person who feels disempowered, who feels fearful, and thus wants to give someone else the power to do what they feel they're not powerful enough to do. I'm not powerful enough to protect me. So let's let the government and the police protect me and make sure that they're disempowered so they can't hurt me. They're coming from a fearful perspective. So what happened is we as a people came from a fearful perspective in which we disempowered ourselves and gave other people the power to supposedly protect us. But you look at the situation, if I need someone to protect me because someone is going to hurt me, it does no good to take someone and give them the power, right? If other people are going to hurt me and I take a little bit of those people and give them power and disempower everybody else, then those are the same people that I think are going to hurt me. So what did they do? They hurt me. Yeah, very simple. So we did that. We did that. So we blame it on the government. That's the way it plays out, but we did that. You know, one way to look at it is there's absolutely no way, like Larkin Rose puts out this video about the little dot, and he made a visual representation of how many people are in the IRS. It's like a little bit of that like that, and how many people, like the IRS is the so-called service here that collects income tax. It was like a little bit that like that, and how many people are in Congress passing the laws about how many taxes are, and it's like a little speck. And all the people that make up the nation was huge. So it was like my hand made up the nation. The little bitty tip of my finger made up all the enforcers of the IRS, and a little bitty dot made up Congress that passes the law of how much taxes they get. And you want to tell me these people, this whole hand believes that they're being subjugated by the little dot and the little pinky? No. It is absolutely impossible. So all the stuff that we say the government is doing, we are empowering them to do. And the fact is, they don't even have to collect taxes to do what they do because they make up money anyway. I mean, how could the United States government be $1 trillion in debt? I think it's even like, I don't know how many trillions it is. Where is that coming from? That's money that's made up. It can't be money they have because it's debt. It's in the negative. So they're making up trillions of dollars anyway. So they don't even have to tax people, right? But what they're doing to tax people is they diminish their ability to act. Now, if you look at the American Revolution, what's one of the things that they revolted about? Taxation without representation. As the story goes, they were being taxed and not being fairly represented. And they said, we're not going to take it anymore. And if you try to stop us, we're going to shoot at you. And that's what they did. And then we had America. So at any period of time, all of us can say, okay, this is not fair. We're not going to take it anymore. And if you try to stop us, little dot, we're going to step on you. And they can't do anything about it. But of course, now we got to a point to where they've built up so much weapons and they've diminished our weapons that it becomes less and less probable every day that we will win an armed revolt against them. Because nowadays, back in the day, everybody had a gun and it was basically number per number. But now they have these big giant weapons that press one button and kill millions of people. What they cannot do is force us to do anything. So, if tomorrow, everyone in America simply said, I am no longer going to contribute to income tax. They didn't overthrow anybody. They didn't kill anybody. They didn't shoot anybody. They just said, we're no longer going to participate. there's nothing anyone can do about it, which means that the government really has no power in that sense. But that's actually why they do what they do. It's my understanding, based upon my research into things like A Course in Miracles and the extraterrestrial things and this observation. And I remember when I was in school, in elementary school, you know, like right now I'm a pretty robust guy, but when I was in elementary school, I was small, you know, and not to mention the fact that I got into school early. Like I joined school when I was 4. A lot of the people was like 5 or 6. So it was a lot bigger than me, so I got picked on. And I remember there was this group of about 4 guys or 5 guys who used to chase me around all every day on recess. Used to chase me around. And I guess they would catch me. I guess they would push me down or harass me, whatever. But normally I would just keep on running. They would chase me around. And when they wasn't chasing me, they would chase this other guy, chase him around, and harass him and push him around and stuff. So I went to the guy and I said, look, when they come this time, let's stand together. And we're going to stand up against these guys. You know what I'm saying? When we come to fisticuffs, that's what happened, right? So pulled him there, and I remember almost having to stop him from running. They came running to the side, like, dude, stay. You know what I'm saying? Because if he leaves, it's going to be just me again. So he stayed. They did not do anything. We stood down. We stood our ground. They stood down, was waiting for us to run. Okay. And we didn't run. It was like, well, I guess we're going to have to fight. And when they won, it was 4-2 or 5-2. They still didn't want to fight. The reason why they did that is because they felt powerless. They felt so powerless that in order to try to give themselves a sense of power, they had to disempower someone else more than them. Right? So the people in government are the same thing. They're like kindergarten kids who feel powerless. So in order to counteract that sense of powerlessness, all they can do is try to dominate and control everyone else and everybody else's resources, so finally they can feel powerful. But since it still doesn't address the real issue of their inner insecurity, it never feels good. So at first they was able to get $1,000 and feel powerful. Then they had to get $1 million. They had to get $1 billion. Now they have to get $1 trillion, and they have to own everything across the whole world and own all the resources everywhere. They feel powerless. So what happened is we gave our power away and said, you take care of it. And they gave their power away, believing that they could actually take care of it and have power over other people. So the person that believes they're disempowered have disempowered themselves. And the person that believes they actually have power over somebody else have also disempowered themselves. The only true power is to recognize your own power, which is equal to everybody else's power. And everybody self-owns themselves and has ultimate authority over themselves. And everybody is equally powerful, and all the resources are equal to everybody's because we're all equally powerful and all equally live here. That's true power. You know, so government is really not powerful. They're very disempowered people at their own insistence at trying to overpower others. Just like we're disempowered people at the insistence of disempowering ourselves. You know, people want to fight for gun laws to be safe. They're disempowering themselves. They're saying, if you take away my power to defend myself, then I will be safe. If you take away my power to make decisions for myself, then I will be safe. That's what government is. We elect somebody in the office and then they make decisions for everybody. Right? Like I can't just choose for myself what kind of gun I want to own or how fast I want to drive or what I want to drink. You know, how you going to tell me what I can or cannot smoke when it affects only me? Right? We have these laws against marijuana in the United States. So you're telling me somebody, you know, there's people who literally go to jail for marijuana charges for life. Right? So you're telling me somebody can't sit in their own house and smoke this plant because you say it's bad? So, but that's what we've done, and people support that. You know, we have to fight drugs and it's hurting people. And look at these people that are sick. They did that to themselves. If you want to smoke crack cocaine until your teeth fall out and you die, I don't agree with that choice, but you can. That's up to you. You know, I mean, some people decide to hurt themselves. But if I take it upon myself to take responsibility for them, then that's belittling both of us. So, and I really believe that if they legalize drugs, it would probably be less done, because one of the biggest crimes, I mean, the biggest crimes that happen is actually through government. Do you know that? Like, and when I say that, I mean not from the perspective of what the government calls crime. Like, in other words, if you look at Nazi Germany, everything they did was legal. Do you know that? Hitler changed the laws and made what he did legal. It wasn't a rogue group of dissidents that killed the Jews. It was the SS officers and the Gestapo. It was the people that was on the payroll of the government that killed the Jews, right? So, you know, the laws, the biggest atrocities happen in the name of government and somebody controlling somebody else, and we put that in power, which means we can end it. And, which again comes from a perspective of self-empowerment. As long as we really believe that the government is doing it, then it's up to the government to stop it. Which when people go on to let's protest and let's write and let's, you know, and all that really does is say you have the power. But we could all just decide I'm not going to participate anymore, and they can't do a damn thing about it. You know. Say again? What happened? Hmm. Well, I would say that would, I mean, that sounds like many aspects of progress from here. So in other words, if the government raises taxes and gives it to big corporations like they did here, the people in Greece would say, we ain't going to take it. And you say they can go out, break things, stop paying anything until they change it. Hmm. Hmm. It sounds like progress from here in America. You know, so many years ago, the government decided, like what happened is the bankers, I don't know, you probably heard about this, hold up here, when the bankers had, I forgot to put myself in red call, let me put myself in there, when the bankers basically toppled the housing market, and then the government gave them a bailout, like gave them billions and billions of dollars and they're the ones that caused the problem. Whereas in Iceland, when something like that happened, they took the bankers and like kicked them out and put them in jail and stuff. You know what I'm saying? So, but here in America, they was like they protested and said, "Oh, I hate what you're doing," but then that was it. So yeah, so that's a good example. So go ahead. Hmm. Hmm. And then like live off of like government benefits, like. Hmm. 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 That's right. And that happens here a lot too, but still, it gives an indication that when everybody gets together, they can make something happen. Uh, so that's awesome, and it's good that it actually worked out in Greece. So, but one thing one difference I would make there is we don't have to tear everything up. Like that reminds me of, and I'm not sure. Like I haven't been able to validate this extraterrestrial race to the extent that I have the other ones. Like I'm certain about the Assassini and the Pleiadians and the Greys and those like that. But this is a guy named Mikkel Desmarquette, and he said he was quote abducted. He was taken on a ride by some ETs, and they let him meet another ET who lives on a planet that's just a little bit more advanced than this planet. And they still have different countries and all, but what he said, they had their country, they lived under tyranny and money and stuff. And he said what happened is there was a group of 4 people who was going around speaking about peace and love and uniting and things that's contrary to a tyrant regime. They weren't necessarily trying to go against tyranny, really. They were just saying, we can love each other, we can unite and stuff like that. And they actually went to the headquarters of where the tyrant was and was standing in front of the steps of his embassy or whatever and was speaking. And they started speaking so well that a group of crowds started to gather around them, and eventually it got to the point, and they were out there they wanted to talk to the tyrant, and they was out there for like a week with no food or water, just waiting for the tyrant to finally open the door and hear what they had to say. Well, by the time the 7th day came, there was about 2,000 people out there listening to them speak about unity and peace and love and uniting. And what happened is the enforcers of the tyrant came out and killed them. Killed all 4 of those people, and the crowd dispersed. But what happened is all those people that was there, the word got around about what happened, to the point that it got around to the entire country. And he said that similar to like what happened in Greece, everybody stopped participating, but they didn't go start breaking stuff up and being angry. He just said that everything just came to a standstill, literally. He said everybody stopped going to work, everybody stopped buying anything, spending any kind of money. Imagine this, everything absolutely stopped. And what happened is the police tried to come like they happened in Bulgaria and enforce on the people, but it was literally everybody. So when the policemen went out to enforce, their mom and their sister was in the crowd, right? So if they was going to shoot the crowd, they were going to have to shoot their mom, their dad, their sister, their brother, because literally everybody was out there. So even the police started to join, right? So basically, the government didn't even have the police to enforce anymore, and so it got to the point that it was literally everybody. And he said that the only people that didn't want to come was the most die-hard of the tyrant. It was like 30 people or whatever, and they were so die-hard they fought to the death to stop the crowd from getting to the tyrant. And they wasn't getting to the tyrant to kill him. They were just removing him from office. But he didn't want to leave the building, the symbolic head of government, so they went in there to remove him. And the top security guards for the tyrant, they literally fought to the death, and all of them had to be killed because they was not going to get out the way otherwise. But basically, those 4 people that they killed to start everything, and those handful of enforcers that would die hard, they was the only ones that died, and they didn't even kill the tyrant. They took and exiled him. They put him on this separate island or whatever for him to live by himself. But they said eventually he himself even learned that you could actually be loving and peaceful, and he became a different person. But he still was in exile, but he wasn't angry or hateful or anything. He eventually became a loving person within himself. So suffice it to say, that whole nation became a unified, loving nation, not because they fought and broke stuff. They just decided to not cooperate en masse. So it's possible, man. Uh, but it's gotten to the point here where, um, with me at least, I more and more, because I mean there's a process, man. Like I said, I mean I know what I know. I know there's a lot that I don't know, and I'm still learning, and I'm still getting to the point of actually implementing this stuff in my life. But to whatever extent that I do implement it, I know that I do it because I don't really care if anybody comes along. You know, just I remember, and several times when I first started speaking out, people would tell me, come from a fearful perspective, which shows what I was saying earlier, that the government is not where they are because they're the government and they're all powerful. They're where they are because we put them there, because we've disempowered ourselves. But people would tell me, oh, you got to watch what you say because you know you're probably on a watch list or something. Let me be on the watch list, you know. Oh, you better watch what you say something. You know, a few people have told me, you know, you should be afraid. You know, 'cause you're talking about this and you're mentioning that and you're speaking out. You know, something's going to happen to you and the government's going to be on the watch list. And the fact is, people have gotten killed for speaking out about certain things, but I don't really care. And what I said was, you know, I'm going to die speaking out with integrity before I live muffled in silence. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm speaking truth and freedom and integrity, and the government comes and busts through my door and kill me, let them. But that's, at least when I die, I'll know that I wasn't contributing to it. You know, at least to the fullest extent I can, I'm standing up for what I know is right. So, and that's all it really takes, man. I'm confident that in my own experience, I'll switch to a world that's reflected in that way. But again, in order for me to truly make that change, to some extent, I don't really care if I switch to in other words, me switching to another world or not is not going to change whether or not I act from my own integrity. So, but if enough people do that, then it will change. So, I hope the people in Greece do elevate from, you know, breaking stuff and being from an angry perspective, because I really believe that that angry perspective keeps that dichotomy in place. Because what happens is they, you know, get all riled up and break stuff and say do this, and then the government does it, right? And then they start doing something else, which means there's a little bit of time when they get away with it. There's a little bit of time when they do what the people don't want them to do, and then finally it reaches that breaking point, that crescendo where they erupt, then they go back. But what about simply realizing we don't have to wait for them to do anything? We can just do it for ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Then you ain't gotta every year or every 10 years erupt in a riot. You can just, okay, we're not going to give you authority anymore over us, and then spend money yourselves on what you want. It's very simple. So that's what I'm really advocating. You know, I'm advocating not becoming some kind of, you know, uprising against the government. I mean, at one point when I came from a more fearful and angry perspective, I did, and anger is just fear. But I realized we don't have to do that. We could just stop giving, you know, deference to these people and just recognize that we all one family. Just like how we live in a household, just like you and your friend live. You all one family in the household, and the resources of the house, you just use it freely amongst each other because you both live there. I mean, why fight? And you know, why should you? I mean, you don't, between you and your friend, y'all don't create some kind of barter system, some kind of monetary system. Y'all live in the house together, and let's just live. If it can happen with 2 people, it can happen with 2 billion people. It only has to do with our thinking. So all we have to do is just decide, man. Yeah, that's really all. That's really all I think it has to do with. But cool. See what you say? So what'd you say, buddy? You got any closing comments or questions or anything? Mm-hmm. So, and that's what I'm doing, man. Huh? Hmm. What do, what do you say? Hmm. 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 That's an amazing point, man, because these people don't realize they're doing this stuff to try to keep their job or whatever, and they actually helping make a world that they have to live in too, and their children have to live in, and their children's children have to live in. It doesn't really make any sense. So it's crazy, man. Hmm. And one thing I find is very important though, like Albert Einstein said, you cannot solve a problem from the same level of thinking that created the problem. So if we come from anger and fear, just like how the people that are tyrants come from anger and fear, then really we're not going to change anything. You know. So the main thing to change is how you think. So more and more I try to work on how I think, and then I let that manifest in the world by the things that I do. But if I'm angry or fearful, I try to address that and undo that. And you know, there's a lady named Byron Katie, and she says that love is active. You know, when you really come to a peaceful place, and you see something not right, it's natural to do something to help change it. So it's not even necessary they have to be all angry and boisterous to change something. You could be peaceful and just naturally, and but that way we won't contribute to the same angry, fearful system. Otherwise, you know, we'll be back right where we at. We won't really make a difference. Look, that's right. That's right. This will be another instance of the same. But cool, man. I hope to try to keep this going on regularly. Would you like to come together again next Wednesday? Oh, cool. Well, I'll be here. So just let me know if something changes or whatever. But either way it goes, I'll be here. And if you know anybody that's interested, and let them know. And let's try to get as many people as we can. So I guess this is one of my expressions of when I change my thinking, and you know, and I say, wow, how can I express this, and what can I do to help, you know, help get people talking about it and help getting us to unite. You know, like you said, the way it plays out, the government keeps us separated. If they want to maintain tyranny and control, well, let's start getting each other united. And if the day ever comes where we have, you know, 10 of these a week with 10,000 people in each one, and then they have others and they have others, then it'll be amazing. So cool, man. I'm gonna go take care of some things. I'll holler at you on Facebook.